Hello, everyone. Tracie here, your resident business rebel, and you're listening to Cocktails, Coffee, and Conversations podcast, the show that lets true stories and insider secrets of digital entrepreneur life unfold. Our business world is growing, and as an online business coach and digital product creator, I believe you didn't become an entrepreneur to grin and bear your way through business. So I'll be your guide as we drop in on coaching calls, have intimate sit-downs with online personalities you love, and discuss ideas, opportunities, and strategies circulating our online world. So pop in your earbuds, tap follow, and join me as I demystify this thing called business.
But I think when you're attracting an audience, you have to be so specific about this is why it worked for me. I was already starting at 20,000 Instagram followers. And so it was really easy. It wasn't that hard for me to get to 150 Instagram followers if,
Yes.
because I had this or I
Yes.
had a team behind me, or I already had 10 years of working in this online business before I went to this. And so I feel like there's kind of a lack of transparency around the strategy that is going to work for you, and I feel like there's so many. And so there's not just the what is going to work for you may not work for someone else, but there's also you need to be clear about why it worked for you. And if that person is not where you were, it might, the results may differ.
Welcome in, everyone. And today I am joined by Kristin Lawton of the District Brand Bar. If you haven't come across Kristin yet, she is the mixologist behind the District Brand Bar, and she brings 20 years of expertise in marketing and branding strategies directly to your business's doorstep. She's not just about ideas, she's about making those ideas actionable and accessible. Kristin specializes in concocting a unique brand recipe for each client, breaking down the complex marketing brew into digestible, easy-to-implement tasks that genuinely impact your bottom line. She loves to elevate your brand and streamline your marketing with strategies that actually work without overwhelming yourself. And that's part of what we're going to talk about today, because what often comes up is this idea that there is one magic way that will fix a certain area of your business or even your whole business. And Kristin and I are going to have a fantastic conversation about how there is no one size fits all. So if you are looking for a bit of relief and a bit of understanding about what does it mean whenever we're hearing all of these messages and we're thinking about what we need in our own business versus what we can just kind of walk away from, I want you to have a listen to this message, because we go a bit deep and we talk about marketing and branding, of course, but we also talk about some different areas of this online business space. So let's go beyond this idea of the framework that's worked for them. So of course it's going to be right for you, or this one strategy, this one way, this one tech, this one software. And let's see what your options can really be, and what is a way that you can decide for yourself, and what are all of the options that you have available to you. So let's listen in. So I really enjoyed this, Kristin, because whenever we were having our kind of little coach to coach Voxer
Yeah.
thing, you were talking about something that just spoke so hard to my
Hmm.
soul, about how that coaches that have the
Yeah.
framework, right? And that it has to be from them, and to believe that it works.
Hmm.
And yes, like you can go all in and you can teach people something that's worked for you in your business, but
Hmm.
you have to deliver that with that asterisk,
Yeah.
right? There has to be that little caveat
Yeah.
there. And I go like all the time on the versus and so when you said that to me, I was like, we have to have this conversation.
Excellent.
So thank you so much for coming on and geeking out with me over this.
Oh, I'm so thrilled to be here and talk about this. Yes. Yeah. I mean, I do think it is so funny that, and I do, whatever has worked for someone, they want to teach that, right? And they want to say, this has worked for me. And they're so passionate about it because it has worked for them. And they want to share how it's worked and their framework and why it's worked. And I think that is what makes their brand unique and their framework unique. And it's their sort of unique selling position. But I think when you're attracting an audience, you have to be so specific about this is why it worked for me. I was starting at 20,000 Instagram followers. And so it was really easy. I was already starting at 150 Instagram followers. And I think that is what makes their brand unique and their framework unique. And I think when you're attracting an audience, you have to be so specific about this is how it worked for me. I was starting at I
Mhm.
was already starting at 20,000 Instagram followers, and so it was really easy, it wasn't that hard for me to get to 150 Instagram followers if, like,
Yes.
because I had this or I
Yes.
had a team behind me, or I already had 10 years of working in this online business before I went to this. And so I feel like there's like kind of a like a lack of transparency around like the strategy that is going to work for you, and I feel like there's so many, and so there's not just the what is going to work for you may not work for someone else, but there's also the like you need to be clear about why it worked for you, and if that person is not where you were, it might, the results may differ.
Right, right. And I really think that you hit on something there when you were talking about basically like giving those disclaimers
Yeah.
and how with some people that might kind of scare them.
Hmm.
They might be like, "Oh, but if I tell people that, well, I had a corporate job, so I was able to pour a bunch of money into it,
Right.
or, I came from 15 years of marketing
Yeah.
before, or I already had, what is it like 15,000 Instagram followers, so it was easier for me to get to 50,000." They might feel like that can dilute the message,
Hmm.
but we know that
Hmm.
actually that can give you leverage,
Yes.
right? Because that can show extended expertise
Totally.
versus feeling like the only way to be successful is to show some sort of bootstraps out of the mud message,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, exactly. It feels like, and it just I'm all about, and I wish there was a better word for authentic because it's so used, but it just doesn't feel authentic when you're talking to this audience that a lot of times are like new, I fell for the trap of like I can sell a passive digital product, with ads right out of the gate with
Mhm.
no email list and no nothing,
Yeah.
and and make all of this money. And I showed my husband the reel, and I'm like, look, like I can do this, right? And it's like, but that's not how it
Yes.
is. And you do think like, and I get from a marketing perspective why you want to sort of have that like, this is the one thing, it's worked for me, it can work for you, but it's gonna hurt your audience. Like it's not gonna work for everyone, and it's also like might not be right for them. And there's also that piece where it feels like by them saying this is the only thing that's going to work for you, you're sort of like negating every other coach that's out there that's had something that works for them,
Yeah.
and everyone's at a different place. Strategies, they're just not one size fits all.
No, they're not, right? It's very much like it's a pick and mix.
Yeah.
And it's like I don't even know if some people know that phrase anymore, but it was like these little bins of candy, and it's like you pick up a bag and you can get whatever you want that fit in the
Hmm.
bag, right? And I think even Costco still does it with like bagels. It's like you can get two, you can get four, and you just stick them
Yeah.
in the bag. But it's the kind of thing where it's like you can make it what you want, but here's a whole selection.
Yeah.
Now, to understand what to do with that selection, let me give you an example of this option
Yeah.
looks like and what this
Yeah.
option looks like, right?
Yeah.
Yes, because that's what I do with my clients. It's
Hmm.
like I'm not teaching them how I'm doing it. I'm saying, welcome to this whole world of business. And
Exactly.
these are all of the things that you can choose from.
Yeah.
It's like you want to tell me a strategy, I can tell you somebody who's done it well.
Yeah.
I can also say it's not going to work if you aren't willing to do these kind of things,
Uh-huh.
or if you want this kind of lifestyle,
Right.
or if you're not starting with this kind of stuff,
Right.
right? And it has that idea of like anything can work.
Hmm.
It's just a matter of what's going to work for you,
Yeah.
right? So where do you see this line of like the difference between when we are a buyer
Yeah.
and we're in that kind of heightened emotional state and we're really looking for a solution and we're
Hmm.
trying to make something work
Hmm.
versus when we have the responsibility of being transparent and giving our little asterisks, and
Yeah.
saying like disclaimer, disclaimer,
Yeah.
like where do you see kind of that balance and what people can do to kind of remember when they're wearing one, hat versus another hat?
Yeah, oh gosh. I mean, I do think it is just about being clear, so from the buyer perspective, so I call myself a marketing mixologist, and it's because I think that, the bar is open and there's all these strategies for
Ah,
you, and it is about tailoring it to your taste and your audience's taste, right? And sort of like figuring out what that like ideal recipe is. And I think that from the buyer perspective, you have to think about, like where do you enjoy marketing your brand? Like what type of tasks do you enjoy? And then like same with like your audience, like where are you finding them? What sort of marketing channels are they coming to you from? Where are they hanging out? Like what's going to appeal to them most? And there's got to be that like Venn diagram of like that sweet spot. And that's sort of where this like marketing and brand and business recipe comes from. And so I think it's about really remembering and staying true to yourself from the buyer's perspective of like, is this something like that would make sense for you, for your business, for your audience, for the services that you offer? Is this feel like just like a quick get rich scheme versus like something that is like, slow and steady wins the race. And when you build these sort of
Mm,
foundations, it's going to work. And then I think from the seller perspective, I also think it is a little bit about like just being clear about, why it works for you and who you want to help, right? And this may not be for X, Y, Z. This might not be for people who are just starting out. It may not be for people who, are really used to being on LinkedIn and then switching them to something else, right? Like I think there's just a way about like,
like starting a brand new platform and you'll have
right.
success tomorrow. It's
Yeah.
like, wait, what?
Yeah, I mean, it is like I do think when people realize that they need a coach or they need a new strategy or whatever, I get these messages all the time of like, I don't want to give up on my business. I'm doing everything that I can. Nothing's working. And they just
Mm,
feel this, you just sense the desperation and you just want to help them.
yeah.
And I think there's just like a way to talk to them and figure out what's best for them versus just like pouncing on that like vulnerability and being like, well, let me just pick you up and pluck you out and I can help you with my framework, but not really understanding that like there's a lot of other things at play.
Yeah, it's that human to human element, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of like putting the brakes on the machine and kinda stopping and having that conversation.
Yeah.
And, and being like, "Okay, wait, of course, it's like we can give you the bot answer, and here's the freebie, and here's the
Mhm.
tripwire, and then here's an upsell, and then,
Yeah.
here's all the things." It's like, "Well, what are you actually looking for?"
Yeah. Right.
It's like, where are you needing? Where are you wanting to go?
Mhm.
What are you looking for? Right?
Mhm.
And I think a lot of this and because I don't want this to sound like there's no automation, right?
Oh
Or
yeah,
that there's no way other than like super high touch and this is
totally.
going to be so
Yeah.
hard, to care for people and then add even more burden, onto what we do and to showing that we're real. I think a lot of this can be done with positioning.
Yeah, for sure. Well,
Yeah?
and I think that as coaches, right, and people that sell courses and whatnot, like we want our clients to have success, right? We want our members to have success. We want a high retention rate. Like, so we want to call in the right people who are going to succeed. Unless you're
Mhm.
just sort of like selling a digital product and you're not sort of like working on with them in any kind of one-on-one capacity, then I guess maybe not. But I think that it's about saying like, here's what this going through, like, here's the pain points I'm solving. Here's how we're solving it. Here's what you're going to get out of it. And a lot of it is up to sort of the audience to read through it and actually read everything
Yeah.
and say, is this for me or is this not for me? And it's sort of it's up to them. But I do think it can be very easy in your messaging to attract the right audience, sell your stuff, sell your framework without having to put down all of the other frameworks or saying that this is the only thing that's going to work for anyone in business.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it is taking that time to understand your own offer.
Yeah.
That
That.
that's a big part that I talk about because a lot of the times whenever, people come to me because it's that sales issue.
Yeah.
And they're feeling that pain. They're having that problem of like they're wanting something and they just can't figure out what clicks. And a lot of times, well, I mean, I always say the biggest secret to getting better sales is understanding your offer better.
Yeah.
Like that's
Yeah.
truly that big secret, right? And because when you understand your offer better, you can relax more.
Yeah.
You can talk about it
Yes.
easier. You hear the little conversations, the little signals to have kind of like that referral conversation, right?
Mhm.
But when it comes to all of these things that you're doing ahead of time, like writing content, writing
Mhm.
sales messaging,
Mhm.
all of this stuff we're talking about positioning, about disclaimers, about being transparent, all of that becomes natural because you're able to think about who is it that's really going to go through it,
Yes.
and some of this doesn't happen instantly.
Right.
a lot of it doesn't happen
No.
instantly, right?
Yes.
Like, no, I mean, we have an offer that we've poured our blood, sweat, and
Yes.
tears into, but we have no idea what's going to happen to it until it's actually out there in the wild.
Yeah.
And then we start to get feedback and we start to
Mhm.
see, like, what people are actually doing with it, right?
Mhm.
So there's kind of that evolution that needs to happen with how we talk about it and who we talk about it to
Right.
as we kind of see what people do with it, right?
Yeah. No, 100%. I mean, I've had, a membership that I've sort of transitioned to more of this calendar subscription. And it took me probably like a year and a half to really understand, okay, what am I actually solving for?
Mhm.
Because you start
Yeah.
off with like, I have all of this expertise and all of this knowledge, and I want to share it, and I want to share it with more than just one on one clients. And so you create a thing, and then you sort of like you're trying it and you're testing it and you're seeing what works, and people are responding to one thing, and so you lean in more in that, or they're not that, so you drop one benefit or whatever. But I do think like these things do need to just take time to like really understand like what it is you're
Yeah.
offering and who you're offering it to. And I think one thing that we do when we think about like our ideal audience is that we go to like the demographics, right? Well, I help
Ugh,
entrepreneurs, I
yeah,
help solopreneurs, and they're maybe this age, and I work with women or men or whatever. And I
yeah,
always think about more like what pain point, what very, very specific pain point am I solving with this, right? And then it's like, well, maybe it is for mine, like if you're on a marketing team or you're running marketing for a business, you can benefit from it versus like just a business owner, even though I sort of talk more to business owners. But really, the pain point that I'm solving is more around feeling overwhelmed with all the marketing tasks and streamline, and needing to streamline things and simplify things and just sort of like eliminating that chaos feeling. And so when I
mm,
narrow down into like that feeling that I'm trying to help them through, right? And like the time that I'm trying to have get them to save, or the money that I want them to save, or whatever that very specific thing is. And then understanding, because once more people go through a program, then you can sort of say, okay, I now know that these are the type of people that really benefit from it. They come in at this type of place and they're really set up to succeed. And when you have sort of a lot more understanding over time, then you can really start like niching down and really being clear about who this is for.
yeah, and it's not, it's just a way to realize that none of this is set in stone.
Yeah.
That it's going to evolve over time, right? And you're not doing yourself or your audience a disservice by having an idea and getting it to the market. And I don't want anybody who's listening to us to think that like, oh my gosh, I have to, have all of this experience and try everything so hard just in order to be, fully transparent, right? It's more like or even just saying, this is something new and this is my idea. This is what I'm thinking
Hmm.
that somebody who's going through this is going to be able to get out of it.
Yeah.
But I can't wait to see what you can do with it.
Hmm.
I can't wait to see what somebody who's willing to experiment with me is going to get out of this.
Yes.
It's
I
like it
love
was
that.
designed for, yeah, it's like it was designed for this circumstance,
Hmm.
for somebody who has this kind of team or this lack of team, who understands like this kind of tech stack,
Yeah.
who can handle this kind of amount of work in order to put it into process,
Right.
right? Somebody who has like this kind of dream and is wanting to put these kind of things together. But I'm also so excited to see who's like, no, I think this will work for my stuff too.
Hmm.
It's like, share your story, tell me what happens with it. But just know that like this is the way that I have set the support up, was with this in mind.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, like we can go to market with those kind of preliminaries
Yeah.
and then let it kind of progress over time.
Yeah.
But we share that part of the story with the humans who are on the other side trying to decide whether or not to buy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. I will often share, like, I'm testing this thing out, want to see if it works. Like, maybe it's something down the road that I'll be able to like turn into a digital product. Like, I'll share that on Instagram stories and like sort of take them through the process of like what I'm learning of like, okay, I'm trying to get my content planning better, and I'm trying to get it more efficient because I'm all about the systems and making things like feel a lot more effortless. And so I like take them through it, and then when I'm like, okay, it's ready, then I have buyers also because they've like watched me through this process of like figuring it
Yeah.
out. So there is that like experimenting piece that I love that you can be, just open and transparent with, and people are going to be really interested because they're going to see how it works for you like throughout the time. Hmm.
Right. And that's still being responsible. That's still giving those little asterisks like we were talking
Right.
about at the very beginning, because you're not saying this is the framework, like this is the way to make it happen.
Yeah.
Like instead you're showing the process, and you're talking about like these were the situations that I was in. You're
Mhm.
just demonstrating it instead of it like just being all the wordy bits, right?
Yeah, right.
It's just making sure that you are giving the reader or the watcher that full vision of what's going on, so that way they can start to imagine how that's going to look in their world.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. And then, I do wanna just say that, like, we're saying, like, not every strategy is sort of one size fits all, but, like, you can also have a great coaching program that is not was focused on one strategy. I think we both, like, very much are, like, wanna focus on what is best for the client and work them through sort of figuring out a strategy and a client journey and that works for them, and that isn't necessarily, like, pigeonholed. So if you feel like you have an expertise that sort of goes across different mediums or strategies, like I think that's great. You should absolutely like offer that, and then just be clear, like, how you tailor what your course, your program, your coaching services to the individual too.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And for see, when I hear that to me is what I think of when I think of niching.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. Because I think of niching as just putting your blinders on.
Hmm.
Of just being able to focus,
Yeah.
so that way all the other, like, exciting, "Oh, I could try this,
Oh,
I could do
totally.
that," all of those things just kinda get put to the side for the maybes, for the eventuallys, for the one days, for another project,
Hmm.
as opposed to thinking of niching like, "I have to be this hyper specific, like, only for this exact kinda thing, demographic, demographic, demographic."
Yeah.
I hate doing based on demographics.
Yes.
To me, demographics is, like, something that you layer in to just kind of, like, add a human element.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
Hmm.
everything else is more that psychographic basics, like, what are your beliefs? What are your
Hmm.
challenges? What are you going after?
Hmm.
And then if you're relating to people who are, moms dealing with pickup while they're also trying to, handle Zoom calls at the same time, that's great. That is that, like, demographic element of showing what your life is like in the wild,
Right.
right?
Yes.
As opposed to being like, my quote unquote niche is that I can only talk to these people in this
Right.
age
Yeah.
band, living this kind of life, and my world is so myopic and blah, 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 blah. I absolutely hate that so much. In case anybody couldn't tell by my blah, blah, blahs, I hate those so much because it makes everything very vanilla,
It does.
right? And that's how we get this whole, hashtag basic,
Right.
right? That's where all of that comes from, because it takes the dimension out of humanality and
Hmm.
out of realizing that, like, we can have the same kind of elements regardless of what you physically look like,
Yeah.
or
Totally.
where you
Live
live.
or right.
That we have these undertones,
Yeah.
these bass notes to all of us.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think it's the same of, like, how long you've been in business or how long you've been dealing with the
Mhm.
thing, like, everyone's starting point is different, but it doesn't mean, like, they still could
Yeah.
come in with a lot of different aspects that sort of equals, like, one, different thing too.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah, like the people that work with me, I often talk about it being kind of like that junior, sophomore, type of business owner. And it's not like you must be year 3
Right.
through 15, it's more like you've tried the
Yes.
things. So you kind of have this taste for what you like, what you don't like. Maybe you did that in 3 months instead of 3 years.
Yeah.
Great.
Right.
Maybe you've tried every single type of digital product, every single type of coaching
Mhm.
container, and you just went super fast through it. Or maybe you've like really tried one thing for a long time.
Yeah.
And so I'm over here using certain words, and you're looking at me like you have no clue what I'm talking about because you've done one single thing for 5 years.
Exactly.
Right. So that also doesn't work because I'm helping people take this massive group of stuff and figure out what their perfect combination is.
Mhm.
Right? And
Mhm.
and so if they have, if I had to go back and teach them the concept of a freebie, because either they never did one even though they've been in business for a long time,
Right.
or because they're just starting out and they haven't gotten there
Yeah.
yet, then they have a different coach that's more suitable for them.
Right.
Right? There's the right place, and I have some fantastic people I can recommend for them.
Mhm.
It's just not me yet.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that they hit a certain year.
Mhm. Exactly.
It just is amount of, like, an experience that they've gone through,
Yeah.
right? The kinda things that they've tried, and they've, decided that they're kind of looking for something different.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like having the arbitrary numbers of like, you've made it when you hit 10K months or the
Oh
5K,
my God.
or
Ugh,
the
I hate that.
100K, the 300K, the half million. Yes.
And
So
then you hear the people and they're like, 1 month of coaching with me is 10 grand.
yeah,
And you're like, "Oh, okay, great." So one person bought one thing from you and you quote unquote
made 10,
go it's
yes.
like, "Go sit down. Forget it. Just go sit down."
Yeah. But again, that's where it goes back to you're not being authentic, right? You're not sharing your numbers. So you're making it seem like, you've hit all of these big months, but really you just had one person pay a year's worth of retainer or whatnot, like in 1 month.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, and now you're sitting there, like, panicking because you don't know how to deliver on it,
Right.
and you're kind of in this tension of, "Oh my gosh, I've created this facade, but I really need help, and I don't know who to get help from, and
Mhm.
what am I gonna do?"
Mhm.
Right? So that leaves you in a bad place too, where you're kind of like, where do I go? What do I do? I'm not sure.
Right.
And that's not a good place to be in either. But you did it following advice that this is the way to be successful
Exactly.
by showing up on Instagram and
Right.
telling everybody this is what you're doing.
Yes.
Blah.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. No, no, you don't have to have, been poor living in your car for 14 years,
Right.
and you don't have to have made six figures in 2 months in your very first year in business. Like either of those extremes, if that is your lived experience, then fine,
Yeah.
be real with it. But it's not a requirement, right?
Exactly.
It's like none
Yeah.
of that is the requirement.
Yeah, yeah, and I
Yeah.
think it's just these, like, very bold statements that sort of just really irk me when I read them of, like, "This is the only way to do X, and if you're not doing this, you're gonna fail," is what is implied, and it
Oh,
just
yeah.
I'm a very optimistic person. I want people to feel like they can reach the goals that they want, and they can do it in a way that does not eat away at their, personal life and their mental health
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
everything else. And I just think that there's so many, I was on Threads today and someone posted, like, we've done all this research on social media. And if you want to grow fast on Instagram, you need to do, and it listed like 4 to 7 reels a week, like one carousel post, 2 to 4 feed posts, go live twice a week, 4 to 7 stories a day, it was like 8 to 38 comments a day. Like it was a lot of things. And like I look at it and I
I'm
was like,
out.
you know what? That's actually not unreasonable compared to what I've been doing, but I am trying to ramp up and do more, right? So for me, I read it and I'm like, okay, I'm not gonna go live twice a week. Let's just be clear. Like 38 comments, no, but I could probably do 10 comments a day. Like so I'm thinking about it. But then I'm seeing other people are like, I just added that's 100 tasks you just added to my plate. I'm like, yeah, that's a lot, right? So like, and so from where I read it, I'm like, all right, I could see that if I just wanted to like go an extra 10% from what I'm already doing, maybe I could sort of
Yeah.
do something more. Whereas you read the comments, and for people who are like not even remotely at the consistency level that I've been working at, they're like, that's 100 new tasks that you're adding to my plate. And it's like, yeah, to read this, it's so defeating if you're trying to grow on Instagram and you see this, and I'm just using Instagram as an example. I think it works across anything, right? Like
Everywhere. Yeah.
everywhere. Like, but you see that and it's just like it can either be really encouraging, right? Because I have this roadmap, I have the plan, love it, or it can be really defeating and people might just like give up, like, well, I can't do that. I'm never
Yeah.
gonna grow
That
on
would be me.
Instagram.
That would be me. I'd be like, "Okay, it's not my platform. I'm out.
Yeah.
Bye."
But but you're also, like, confident to where you're like, "That's not my platform. I will go to the platform that feels comfortable for me." Whereas other people will just sort of, like, give up, and I hate that. And I feel like that's why I just hate these, like, one-size-fits-all strategies because it just feels like you're discouraging other people from, like, finding their own niche and their own success in their own way, in a way that works for them. Because it's just like they read these things and you see it over and over, right? The same people are running the same ads, and they're when you get into the algorithm, right, where you're just like getting fed this one type of strategy over and over and over, then it's like, oh well, I guess, yeah, I'm out. Like I can't, there's no way I'm going to reach this. Meanwhile, like none of those people are saying, here's how long it took me to get this. Here's the staff that I have behind me helping me. Here's the money I've
Yeah.
spent on ads. Like, by the way, you're bringing in 300,000 a month. Well, let me see how much you're spending on ads, like, and how much you're actually taking home, right? Like, you're just, it's again, it's just not the full truth. And I feel like it's
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
it can be pretty harmful.
Right. Well, and even like to your point about the staff helping, or like, here's the automations I have, here's
Yeah,
the bots that are
right.
doing,
And here's
like
how much I'm
maybe
paying on my
task
tech stack.
35 through 60 is automated.
Right.
Right. Whereas the other people who are like, you just added this to me, are sitting there thinking they need to manually do these
Yeah,
things. Right.
right.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
and right,
Because
like, it's
it's not like
everyone that's,
fully
like,
fleshed out.
pushing mini chats or all these other automations right now, like, one, you need an audience for that to be,
Hmm.
if people are commenting a word and they're getting DM'd the thing to go by, like, you need an audience who's going to do that. So a lot of people are not at that level, but also, like, those softwares are just adding more money and more money to your tech stack
Yep.
that you may not be bringing in yet enough to, like, make up for that. And so, again, I think it's just, like, really understanding everything that goes into it all. Yeah.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, because that's something that gets me. It's like I feel like you have a big responsibility when you affiliate for, well, for anything,
Yeah.
but like if you're affiliating for tech,
Yeah.
then you need to tell people at what point they actually need it.
Yes.
Right? Especially if you are affiliating for a tech that, and like more than one tech that does similar things.
Yeah, right.
That, and so basically you have an audience bubble and you're telling them to buy this and this, and it's like, but that one does
Yeah,
that, like, but and they're just going, "Okay, okay, okay, okay,"
right.
because they're just eating the dream that you're feeding them,
Yeah,
right? And so they're just like, "Oh, okay, okay." And they're like, "Oh, well, I haven't had a six-figure launch yet, but I have a six-figure tech bill,"
yeah,
and it's like, "For what
100%.
purpose?" Yeah, you can grow into
Yeah,
those.
when I first started in this world, my, like, business mentor, because I was in her membership, right? She pushed the very, like, complicated, expensive email platform, and I was like, "Well, I guess that's what
Oh boy.
everyone uses, right?" And then a year
Right?
later, I had 200 subscribers and using none of the features. I'm like, "Why am
Mhm.
I spending this money that I don't that I'm not bringing in enough to, like, make up for it? I'm not
Uh,
using half of it." And then it's a complicated process to switch to a different platform or
yep.
downgrade. And I did that so many times in my first, like, 2 years, where I started high end because that's what everyone was using. And I ended up
And you wanna
downgrading.
be legit, right? Of
Yes.
course,
Right.
you wanna be like, "I'm serious, I'm all in."
Yes.
Yeah, so
Right.
this is what I have to do, right?
Yeah.
Bullshit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Complete.
All that pressure and all of that. And I mean, I love that, like, you figured it out,
Yeah.
but imagine what it would have been like to not have felt the pressure, to not have taken, like, 2 years to untangle yourself,
Well, right, and,
from those
like,
kind of
I am a
things.
marketing expert, I am really good at tech, right? So, like, these things, like, I jumped into it's frustrating because I should have known better and done my research, but I was really excited about the prospect of all of this,
Of
and I was,
course.
when you move into the online business space, it's so different from the corporate world, and so I'm still
It
learning even,
very.
but, like, so the detangling for me wasn't so bad, but the detangling for other people could be really cumbersome, and they would probably end up spending more money to pay someone to help them with that,
Mhm.
because it just can get very complicated for sure.
Yes, yes, and, I have my private clients, but I also guest coach,
Hmm.
and I can kind of keep up with the, season of launches, shall I say,
Yeah,
with, like, who's doing what and who's going all out right now by what I hear these people say, because everybody will start saying, "Oh, I'm gonna change over to this one. Oh, I'm gonna start using that. Oh, yeah, yeah, I finally have everything working over here, but now I'm gonna go over here,"
yeah,
and I'm like, "What are you doing?" Like, I my litmus test is, can your members, clients, students, like whoever your humans are that are actually paying you for your business, right?
mhm,
Can they access what they need to access in a way that makes them excited to be there?
right,
That's primary.
yeah,
Yeah. Because you can get help, right? And as the business owner, you can get help more than, your students can, or your coaching
mhm,
clients, or your members
mhm,
can, right? It's a lot harder for them to get help with your platform than it is for you to. So, like, they come first.
yeah,
But then second is, do you actually enjoy it?
mhm,
Is it easy for, or do you feel like for me, like I simplified myself and I ended up going all in one. And because I got tired of having like 15 logins,
yeah,
and I want to see my analytics, but I want to see them in like a simplified dashboard. And I
mhm,
can make dashboards, through, like, I mean, just simple ones with Excel, courtesy of
mhm,
like CSV files and things like that. Or I could just have a platform that pulls it all for me because it was all together,
Right.
right? That doesn't have to be everybody's
Yeah.
thing. That's just what worked for me because I'm crotchety and that's just how I was.
Right.
So so like that was what I was after. But then number 1, can your students, clients, whatever you want to call your humans, can they get in there? Do they like it? Then number 2, do you actually enjoy it?
Mhm.
So as long as 1 and 2 is there, the rest of it
Doesn't
is
matter.
just ignore
Yeah.
it, right?
Yeah.
Because you'll come to a point where you will naturally hit a threshold with the software and then you can start shopping.
Right.
Right? I mean, like ConvertKit can do fantastic for you until you reach a certain number of subscribers. And then maybe you want to look at Active Campaign,
Yeah.
or maybe you want to
Right.
look at Keep, or maybe you want to look at, I don't care, fill in the blank.
Right.
It's like that kind of like softwares have a natural progression of things.
Mm.
You don't have to suddenly buy a super expensive one all at once,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I mean, for the all-in-one I was talking about, I left the multiple platforms that I was logging into. So I still use Dubsado for my CRM, but I have Kajabi otherwise, which
Mhm.
is also has a built-in CRM. But
Yeah.
because I have invoiced work as well as like student portal work, I have the two. And I mean, I still haven't outgrown it.
Yeah.
One day I'll probably go back to Active Campaign, but in the meantime,
Right.
I'm fine.
Yeah.
Are there things that I'm missing? Certain bells and whistles, certain stuff? Yeah. But until either it's really difficult for a student or coaching client or until it really bugs me, oh well,
Right.
right?
Right.
It's like I don't care whatever other latest affiliate, because that's what's happening. Affiliate is like
Mhm.
going balls out trying to get
Mhm.
me to buy something. I don't have to care.
Right.
And I mean, maybe it's just easier for me to say because I get grumpy, but
No, I mean,
for
it is
me, like, this goes back to that same
yeah,
concept as the framework,
yeah,
right? It's the
nothing.
software,
Right.
it's the
Totally.
text thing, it's like, no, it's not. It's
Yeah.
an option. That's
Yeah.
all it is.
I do wish that with all of these things, like, there was a big thing of sign when you sign up, there's like a warning, like, when you sign up for this, you're gonna go all in and you're not gonna wanna switch, and it like, make sure it has all the things
Right.
you want. Because like, yeah, like,
Yes.
I use
Yeah.
Squarespace, ConvertKit, and Kajabi, and yes, I could do it all in Kajabi, but I don't like Kajabi's the way that their web pages are designed, so I can't build my website on it
Yeah.
because I am nitpicky and I'm a brand expert, and that's what I care
Yeah.
about.
And that makes
You
sense,
know,
right? That
and,
makes
like,
sense.
the emailing, like, I want my sequences and my automations, and I j there is, like so, yeah, I have owned and I'm proud to pay for all 3, even though I know I could do it all in one, but I was able to, like, make that informed decision, you know,
Yeah.
and not sort of
And after trying the really big ones
after
that was meant for
trying
like
yeah,
500,000 people.
yes, right, exactly.
You're like, "I have my list of 50, and I'm gonna buy something that's meant for 500,000," you know?
100% that is what I did.
Yes. Yeah, and that's what I mean about, like, the responsibility of the person affiliating,
Yeah.
right? Because as the buyer, yes, we have a mutual responsibility to educate,
Mhm.
but there is an extent that, well, like, we can only kinda go so far,
Yeah.
right? Especially if someone's saying, "My bonuses expire," or, "If you
Yeah.
sign up through me, you get this and that," right? And
Right.
they add on all of this. So
Yes.
they're manipulating the emotion, they're
Yes,
manipulating the psychology, they're pulling every single trigger out there.
they are.
And so you're going, "Well, I need something.
Yes.
I trust this human, so I'm gonna go with this,"
Right.
right? And it's okay to affiliate for something, like a huge one like Keep, while at the same time doing something like a Kajabi.
Yeah.
If you say, "When you're at this stage,
Right.
this one's for you.
Yeah.
When you're at this stage," or if you're looking for this, then yeah, sure, have an Active Campaign and a Squarespace.
Yeah.
If you wanna be able to do that while also having and just use this for a student portal.
Yeah.
Like that was a decision that you made because you knew you and that was
Right.
what you liked,
Yeah.
right? For myself, I just got tired and I was on WordPress. And with WordPress, if you don't buy the right theme, you're
Mhm.
screwed.
You're screwed. Yeah, I build Squarespace websites for clients, and I will not touch WordPress
Yeah,
because it's the end
exactly.
users, it's very hard. But yeah, and I will just say, like, for buyers, like, because it can be hard to get all of this across in, like, a social media post, right? Or, like, a quick reel, but, like,
Mhm.
you
Yeah.
just so just ask, right? I would have 0 like, when I'm on coaching calls, like, I will share everything, I'm super transparent. If someone DMs me, I'm super transparent. If you wanna say, like, and I'm sure everyone out there, like, DM them, email them back, and just be like, hey, this is where I'm at in my business. Like, I'm sort of getting bought into buying this course, this program that you're affiliate with. Like, do you think it's right for me? Here's where I'm at. Or ask the questions like, just specifically, like, do you think it's right for someone at this level or with this skill, or
Hmm.
this is what I'm looking for? What's involved in making the switch? Just ask the questions, take that pause before you just sort of like have that emotional like yes. And I can't imagine someone's gonna like turn you away or not answer questions, of like
A
the
and if they don't, I mean, like,
yeah, there's
if
your
they don't
answer.
answer, then great.
Yes,
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, it's like, then they don't need your affiliate commission, go to somebody who does.
yeah,
And, like, that's a fantastic, responsibility for the buyer to take, and
yeah,
from the seller side, like, if you are looking at your real space or your caption space and you're like, "How am I gonna fit this in?"
yeah,
Then you can just say, "If you're wondering if it's right for you, shoot me a message."
totally. Yeah,
Or, like, if you've actually set up like a links page or an affiliate page
yeah.
for it, then just say, if you're wondering if it's right for you, I've got all the
All the
details over
details,
here.
yes.
Right. And that one little line where you're either inviting the
Mhm,
questions so
mhm.
people who don't already think to self advocate
Yeah,
can start to think, I can ask. I'm not
right.
dumb if I wonder.
Yes.
Right. Because there's that pressure to know all the things.
Yeah,
Right. Especially if they're looking at you like, oh, wow, I aspire to you. Like, I'm
right.
curious. I want to know. Yeah. So it's like just inviting the question. And then if you have, like a separate page,
Yeah,
then going ahead and putting what, 5, 6 bullets on there
right.
that just kind of say, and as you get questions, then you can, that can also evolve, right? Where
Well,
it's like,
yeah.
as you hear from
Mhm.
people, then of course, right,
Well,
you
and I
can
mean,
start to
and from
add
the
to.
coach's perspective, like if you answer these questions, you've built that know, like, and trust immediately, right? Because like you're responding, you're
Yeah.
sending that personal email, you're getting to know the person, they are going to buy from you. Like assuming that it's a good fit, or down the road they're going to buy from you, but they are going to be an engaged person in your community. So
Right.
like it's just a win-win to actually like allow that conversation to make sure that the person buying from you or buying that affiliate link or getting coached from you is the right fit and sort of going through and answering those
Mhm.
questions.
Yeah, yeah, I love that, because you're getting all the street cred,
Right.
right? Like, as a real human, and and with that part of it, if that's not the right thing, then they may say, "Oh, actually, go buy from this person
Yeah.
because they're really fantastic."
Mhm.
Because there's always the referral buy, and you may never know who it is that's saying go to you.
Yeah.
But it's never a missed opportunity. There's never anything. Just being a good human, and just going ahead and taking that extra step, right?
Mhm.
And as you start to answer those, that's where you can, once again, like, you can leverage that tech, and you can make those little saved answers in Instagram, so you don't have to buy an extra bot. You don't have to
Right.
have any sort of extra thing in your tech stack. You can just save it as a template in Instagram,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
And that's super helpful. So if people want to ask you
Yes.
questions, how do you answer those?
Well, Instagram is a great place. I'm at District Brand Bar. I love chatting up with people, so come say hi there. But I am my email is always open as well. It's Kristin at districtbrandbar.com. But yeah, I love, helping you figure out what's the right recipe for your business. So yeah, for sure, come hit me up.
I love that. Yes. And we will enjoy our cocktails together.
Yes,
So thank you for joining me on the theme of this. I've got my gin Ricky, which for those who don't know, it's not tonic, it is soda water because
yes,
I don't like tonic.
yep.
And you have your lovely mocktail going
I
with
do.
a
I have a
watermelon.
little watermelon juice and soda water, and yeah, a gin Ricky is a DC. It's like the DC's official cocktail. So you're on
Is
brand.
it?
Yes.
I had no idea.
Yes.
I love that. Yeah.
Mhm.
I just don't like tonic water.
I don't either. I
So
do
I
I
use
do gin
soda
and
water.
soda too. Yeah, and technically a gin
Yeah.
Ricky has a little like of the roses like lime juice in it.
Yeah, a little sprig. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Little extra little zhuzh to it. Now, we had a lot of storms. I was
Yeah.
running short on time. I was
Yeah.
like, but I always I always got my gin, I always got my soda water, and
Same.
that does it. Yes.
Yeah.
So thank you very much for being here with
Oh
us.
yeah.
I loved that conversation. I get a little fired up on these things.
I
So
know.
I love that you were right there
Oh
with
yeah,
me.
for sure.
Yes.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for joining me here in Cocktails, Coffee, and Conversations. Be sure to check out the show notes for all the links mentioned today. And while you're there, I'd love for you to rate and review the show. And if you have a topic or question you want me to answer, I want to hear it. Head to traciepatterson.com/AMA and ask me anything about business. If I don't know it, I'll bring it up with one of my guests. Until next week, be well and have some fun.